Greetings! Welcome back to the Grumpy Gardener Medicine Show number 6. This one's all about time, if you have the time, T-H-Y-M-E. And before we go to the central subject, let's talk about a few odds and ends that have popped up in the media again. One, for instance, I noticed this morning, it's always coming around and going around and coming around and going around as far as whether coffee is good for you, coffee is bad for you, coffee will give you cancer, coffee will make you lose weight, coffee is good for the elderly, blah, blah, blah. It's around and around, and I guess it depends on who does the studies. I'm getting by okay, and I've been drinking coffee since I was 10 or 11 years old. I grow coffee here in Hawaii. Coffee is one of the reasons I'm here in Hawaii, because I happen to like the plant a lot. It's got a great smell, the gardenia flowers on it, grows really well up here on the mountain on Kilauea. Just a wonderful plant. I love coffee. I like drinking it, and I drink it every day. That's probably half the reason you guys got videos to watch. Anyway, one of the latest studies says that 1 cup of coffee per day is good for you, but 4 of them will actually strengthen your heart. And I've heard things that say don't go beyond 5 cups. That's probably a good idea. I very seldom drink more than about 3 or 4 cups of the stuff a day myself, and I have not noticed that it harms me in any way. What I do know is that as I get older and older and older and older, my energy level begins to decline. And as you become aged, the use of stimulants in our diet actually can become quite valuable, because if you use them carefully in the right way, they can make you feel a lot younger and give you plenty more pep than you might have had otherwise. And so I definitely use coffee as my daily stimulant to get me moving through stuff, and it seems to work real well. I believe I've heard before that modern physics is something on the order of about 20% perspiration and the rest of it 80% caffeine. Probably true. So drink more coffee. Like they say in Chicago, it's good for you. Otherwise, I also noted that in Australia, Toys R Us is finally closing down under. Now, they had closed here a while back in the U.S., but it's spreading, and they decided they can't keep them open down there anymore either. Now, obviously, this is a medicine show, and so why Toys R Us? It's because I want to make a connection with something that's happening here and some of the statistics we talked about previously. In previous discussions, we had gone to the World Health Organization stating that, excessive gaming is an addictive thing. We looked at the fact that teenage drug use has dropped by 50% in 10 years, but the amount of time kids are spending on the screen is ridiculous. It's just huge. Well, the CEO of Toys R Us, when he decided to start closing the mainland stores, had said something that other people were claiming, well, it's the online shopping that's destroying the market for Toys R Us. Amazon is the big one to blame, they'd say. And, the CEO came forward as he was closing the stores, and he said, well, online shopping does have an effect on our business, but that isn't really the cause. His belief was Toys R Us is closing because children in general are not asking for or using analog physical toys. Toys for them have pretty much become virtual, digital. It's all about screen time. And, well, I'm a guy, I live here in the digital age, and I use digital technology constantly. All right, and so I like it. I think it's a good thing when it's under our control. And for me, what I'm doing here in front of this camera will be posted on the internet. You guys will receive it on your phones and your computers. And I think that's a really good thing, because for me, this is a tool, and it's a tool to try to convey real information from one person's real brain straight to another person. Okay? And so that's why I think this is really good. And for me, it's a controlled issue. I like good cameras, but I have no obsession with them. I own plenty of computers, but I have no obsession with them. They're tools like hammers, screwdrivers, drills, and any other appliance that I use. how many special attachment to these things. We're seeing a whole different reversal, though, going on in the youth, as an obsession and a connection, and it's so deep it becomes an addiction with this digital and virtual technology. The loss of analog toys really frightens me. I mean, I don't get scared about much. I take after Grandpa. I'm a pretty tough cookie, but that one worries me about the future. In my life, in my childhood, my background, and in many of yours, I'm sure you played with dolls, little toy plastic people, dinosaurs, animals, many different things that were totally physical. I learned everything I needed to know about soil engineering before I was 9 by digging in the dirt, and running hoses in it and so on. I really advocate that we should, if we have children, we should try to introduce them into things like a sandbox with a dump truck, maybe with, flying balsa wood model airplanes or gliders, things you can throw around the yard and chase, modeling clay. The most wonderful gift my mother ever gave me as a child was to see sure that my brother and I had an adequate supply of modeling clay. Whatever we didn't imagine in our plastic army guys and our toy dinosaurs and whatever we had, the rest of it was made from modeling clay. And everything else that we wanted to create, we made it from modeling clay. Years later, in art school, I found I had an affinity for creating ceramics, and I did a lot of murals. And it was a background in taking the clay and shaping it into real things, taking my mind, putting it into this lump of clay. I mean, wow, is this Genesis and biblical, It's like the basis of all things, and turning that into something that was, in my imagination at least, real. And woodcraft, too. I always thought my kids hated camping and hiking. I really did. They used to complain bitterly when we go on long hikes and camp out. But find out later on, these were some of their childhood experiences that really affected them, and to this day, they still hike in the woods and they still take in nature. Learning how to gather sticks, how to make a fire, learning how to stay dry in the rain, learning how to stay warm and toasty in the snow, just walking through the woods and learning to see the animals, identifying the trees. These are all real objects. And so with the closing of Australian Toys for Us, it's the last straw as far as I'm concerned. We're losing track of all of that. Y'all can go back, and I have a video I did about merging the future and the ancient together. What's current and what's ancient. We need to bring them all together. I mean, if you got to sit down with a family drum circle, the one thing my mother would never buy me was a drum set, Why? Because it makes a lot of noise. But, wow, I tell you, there'd be nothing like the family just sitting down, beating on drums together, singing. It's as old as it gets. It's the beginning of time, But it brings us back to our roots as humans, and we understand who and what we are. And I don't think we'd have quite as much suicide if we beat on drums more. Yeah, that's what I think. Oh, moving right along, let's talk about some medicinal herbs. Now, the main focus for me in this show is going to be about plants that we grow. Now, I will also talk about supplements you buy from the store, and some of the plants we grow can also be bought in the store. So, processed, prepared tinctures and creams and oils and encapsulated herbs and so on, all good stuff. And if you live in a New York City apartment, well, you're not going to be growing too many medicinal herbs in your garden anyway. So you're going to buy them at the health food store from Amazon or someplace or another. And that's all fine and dandy. But for the grumpy garden guy, mostly, I'm not a supplement guy. I don't do food fads. I hate taking pills. I'm very cautious about things like minerals. I'm also cautious about enzymes. I have personally had some bad experiences in my life with dosing, taking things. I ended up with blood clots breaking loose from a broken rib in my chest after some goofball cook in a Jamaican restaurant brewed me up a homemade ginger beer that was so intense that it actually knocked the blood clots loose in my chest. Ginger is a blood thinner. So my primary focus is the use of materials that I incorporate in my diet in the normal course of a day. I don't like to take capsules, pills, and other things like this. I only take them when I need to and when it's the only way for the solution. Otherwise, everything else goes into my cook pot. That's the way I see it. I don't think we were created to have to take handfuls of pills, okay? I believe the human organism works perfectly well when it's just consuming things that are around us in the environment, provided they're the right things. So that will be the primary focus of what I'm going to talk about. But the show is a symbiosis, and I would like everybody out there who has other ideas to get back to me, and we'll discuss them, you know. I'm wide open. I am. But as for me, if I can cook it, and I can eat it, and it's good for me, I'm going to do it. In this case, we're going to take a little time to talk about thyme. There are so many varieties of this herb. When I ran the nursery in California, we used to get sometimes up to 24 different types. Each one of them a little bit different, some better for ground covers and ornamentals, some better for food, some better for health. But in general, all of the plants in the thyme group contain some really amazing properties. There's some oils in them, there's thymol and there's a couple of others, that the active principles, according to most herbalists, would be thyme can be used to control bedwetting, diarrhea, stomach aches, arthritis, sore throats, coughs. It's a diuretic, so it will increase urine flow. The plant is also strongly antifungal and antimicrobial. And so this opens up a whole world of different possibilities of how this plant can be used. On the skin, it works with eczema. It will also work with acne. It's real good for pimples, believe it or not. The oil in particular, the extract oil is the best for that. But the way I use the plant most of the time is I just grow it in the garden. I go out, I harvest that stuff in the morning. My favorite way to eat thyme, really, is sauteed with the onions and a little pepper and some turmeric in the pan with my morning eggs. I love thyme and eggs. If you love cheese, try a little cheese on top of that too. It really tastes good. That takes a pretty good handful. Don't be afraid to throw in quite a bit of thyme. I just harvest it, chop it into fine fragments, and fry it in the pan with everything else to release the oils. The other way that I use it, and that is my grandmother, who had chest problems, she was a heavy smoker. The doctor used to have her inhaling steam. She would take a pot of water, boil it on the stove, put it on the table on a towel, take a paper bag, put it over the top of it, tear a hole in the paper bag, and then she would just kind of sit there and inhale the steam from this pot to kind of free the stuff up in her lungs. Well, seeing how she did that, years later, when I had a sore throat problem and I had some lung infections going on, I decided to try that trick, but instead I threw thyme in the water and made a very strong decoction or infusion of thyme tea. I think perhaps for this, the lemon thyme, Thymus thitodora, with the golden spots on the leaves, very, very attractive plant, is probably the best one, I think. I've used both regular common English thyme, or winter thyme we call it, and I've also used the lemon thyme for this. The lemon thyme certainly really smells good. They both work pretty well. They will free up, mucus in the chest. They seem to soothe a sore throat. They have an antimicrobial property that comes in as you inhale the steam that may help kill some of the infection off. I think it's great stuff. Hey, if for no other reason You know, belief's a powerful thing, and if I feel that it makes me feel better to inhale thyme steam, there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. I see there's some research that the oil from thyme will actually even kill the larvae of tiger mosquitoes. That's interesting. That's a nasty bug. We've got some of them here in the island. It's also, again, as I say, it's a really strong natural biocide, which is a substance that will strongly affect microbes. And so any situation where you may have a microbial problem, and it's possible to either inhale the thyme, maybe eat the thyme, definitely apply thyme oil or salves made from thyme decoctions on the skin, on topical issues. There's also studies indicating that thyme will lower blood pressure. And so perhaps that's a good thing for me to be eating it in the morning with my eggs, since I don't have very many health problems, but they're always warning Bill about his blood pressure. I've also seen studies about using thyme as a food preservative that come out of Portugal. Now, in the United States, we don't really need to worry about that too much, but it's antifungal and antimicrobial properties. For instance, if you were going off to a picnic in the country with a family, maybe using some thyme in the potato salad might help keep the mayonnaise from spoiling. Who knows? Anyway, it's worth a shot, and it tastes really great in food. That's the main reason why I eat thyme. Oh, enough yak, chitter, chatter. How about we look at the real plant? Here in my hand, I am holding a pot of English thyme, sometimes called winter thyme. This is the most common variety of the plant, and it's the one that we generally use for culinary purposes. It's my favorite because I mostly use it in food. It has an excellent aroma. Oh, great in soup. I really like it in eggs. It's nice on fish. It's nice on a lot of different meat dishes and such, and even over some green beans, you know. It's really a useful herb. Frying it or boiling it tends to bring out the oils, and definitely I'm going to add some to my soup today. This was grown from cuttings that came from the thyme I have in my landscape. Now, you can grow thyme from seed. The seed is very tiny, and you need to lay it on the surface and be very gentle with the seedlings as they grow. So you can do it that way. I generally don't. It's much easier just to break off stems and root them with this plant. Once you have one in your landscape, as it rambles outward, you can peg it by putting soil or a rock down on top of the stem. It'll make a new plant in that spot. You can cut it free and move it to different areas. That's how I got this one originally. I pegged a stem, then I brought the stem into the nursery here and grew it out in this pot. Because thyme is very, very well adapted in moderate to low moisture settings where there's really good drainage, in climates that are not too extreme. I have grown this as far north as Zone 3 in northern Wisconsin, but it requires good drainage and really good winter protection. I used to be able to keep it under snow. Snow worked. As long as I kept the thyme below a good pack of snow for the winter, it was fine. From Zones 5 down through about Zone 9, the plant tends to thrive really well through most of the area as long as it's not too arid or not too wet, and your soil drains pretty well. It will persist for years in those environments. In Zone 3, it used to die out after a hard winter. In California, around the San Francisco Bay Area, the plant almost seemed like it was perfectly adapted. It's sort of a Mediterranean-style herb. And there it would ramble, peg itself, continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the original patch of thyme I planted in California is probably still there if the new owners didn't pull it out. Here in Hawaii, it's pretty short-lived. I don't think it likes our volcanic soils very much. They're kind of acidic maybe for it, and the heavy rainfall is a little hard on it. And so I'm going to grow my thyme in a container and make some comparisons between what's in the ground and what's in the container after this year, and see if I can get a little more pep out of this thing while I'm growing it into a pot. I have Pro Mix here in a pot. I have already embedded a certain amount of fertilizer down in the soil for the plant. And usual, putting our fingers around the base of the plant, shoving downward on the pot like that. Now this is kind of root bound a bit here, and so I'm going to open up the bottom of the root ball like that. And I'll just place the thyme here in the container and then tuck the soil down around the bottom so the hole's closed. There you have it. That's all there is to potting up some thyme. We'll see how well this one works out for me. Aloha, y'all have a wonderful day, and I'm just going to stay as grumpy as ever.